This is an incredibly important video that I'm really glad has gotten this much traction. I'm really thankful to Caitlin for uploading it, for sharing her story. And I just want to add a little bit of perspective to it because you can actually no longer convince me that men are not being extremely calculated about this kind of behavior and that this kind of behavior is like happening on accident or because the men don't know any better. I think that this type of crazy making behavior is actually very intentional. And if you haven't seen the video, it's tagged in the caption. It's really, really, really good just because of all the insights that really we can glean from it. So let's go over it. So Caitlin actually starts her video with the inciting incident of what caused them to break up. But we're gonna take things in a chronological order, just once again to give you a little bit of a clearer perspective. Because the inciting incident is definitely egregious. It's egregious enough to break up over. I completely agree with her decision and with her choice. But obviously there was red flags leading up to all of this. Of course, there's absolutely no hate in this to the original creator. This is only for educational purposes, especially for women, because once again, you can no longer convince me that when men do this type of behavior, that they're doing it unintentionally or because they don't know any better. I actually really, really, really think that they do. And I think that this behavior is calculated. And like calculated, I mean that in very literal terms. And let's start with the numbers. Let's start with the age, right? So first and foremost, Caitlin said that her and this man have an age gap. He's about to turn 40, she's 32. She said he doesn't want to date women his own age because they're all in a rush to have children, which she thought was weird because he himself was in a rush to have children. And he had this whole idea of like, I'm going to provide for my children and I can't wait to have kids and I can't wait to be a dad. That's really interesting because you're talking out two sides of your mouth right away. You're saying the women my age are in a rush to have kids, but I also can't wait to have kids. I want to do that with you. And the calculation there is, first of all, the age gap itself. Men view relationships a lot of the time as a status symbol, especially when men start to get up into their 40s. It becomes increasingly important to them, like the longer that they stay single, it becomes increasingly more important to them to find that relationship and to use it as a means of propelling and uplifting their status. And one of the easiest ways to do that is to flex on all your longtime married friends who like married their high school sweetheart or married somebody their own age when they got out of college by bringing around somebody who is like up to 10, 15, 20 years your junior. It's just, that is what it is. It's a status symbol. The man doesn't want to date women his own age because they look his age or because then they would just be his age. And there's no flex in that. There's no status in that. Even though he literally, again, is talking out two sides of his mouth saying, these women are in a rush, but I really am in just as much of a rush. That actually means you have the exact same goals as those women that you're saying are in a rush, and that's why they're like out of the question for you to date. What a lot of men like this are really saying is that the women who are quote unquote in a rush, they're gonna hold them accountable. They're gonna actually have a timeline. They're gonna actually expect certain milestones to be hit. They're not gonna want to be strung along. They're not gonna want to be messed around with. And again, based on this man's behavior, that's exactly what he wants to do. And so that's why he's not dating women his own age. And also, not only that, but why did you wait so long to have kids? Like, women your age are probably not even trying to have kids anymore. I mean, it's kind of wishful thinking to be like, oh, women my age, they're all in a rush. Like, I kind of doubt it because women that are 40 years old are probably like not gonna have a baby at this point. They could have had a kid this whole time by themselves, you know? So it's kind of like wishful thinking to be like, oh yeah, they just all want to have kids with me right away. Like, I kind of bet they don't. I kind of bet that's what's pissing him off. I kind of bet that's part of the reason why he doesn't want to date women his own age, because he waited too long. So for all of those reasons, the very first calculation is I need to find a woman who's not my age. I can pull off a bunch of stuff that is not going to fly with women that are 8 or 10 years older, are actually my age, because those women know way too much. Those women have already been through the ringer with plenty of guys like me. And in fact, once again, I bet you the real reason he's not dating women his own age is because they think he ain't shit. They don't think he has anything to offer them, which is very clearly the case. Speaking of calculated, let's talk more numbers. So in her video, Caitlyn also mentioned that while this man was like very upfront with her about his base yearly salary, he never really asked her about hers, and he didn't want to know because he was under this assumption that women are all gold diggers, and that he didn't want to end up in a situation like that with a woman who's going to be basically freeloading off of him. And in her video, Caitlyn said, the funny thing is, I actually have a way higher base salary than him. Like, this man ain't shit to me. I take care of myself. And I also wouldn't automatically quit my job when we get into a relationship because I'm too career oriented for that. I like my career. I like my job. I like the money that I make. And I don't plan on giving that up. What I was testing was this man's generosity and this man's understanding of the social dynamics that men and women come to face in real life. The social dynamics that we're going to come to face when it's time to have children, right? Because again, they had talked about this. It's very clear that at least he wants children. And she's like, okay, well, if you want children, there are certain things that I need to make sure that you are as the father of my children. Because for a woman, when you think about pregnancy and giving birth and raising the really small infant children and beyond, you need to realize that your life is going to get put on hold in some way, shape, or form, and maybe much sooner than you think. Some women have really complicated pregnancies. So if you're planning to work up until the date that you're giving birth, that may not always work out. That may not always be able to happen. Not only that, but your child could be born with special needs. Your child could be born with conditions that force you to have to quit your job. It's very important in those situations that a man is not stingy, he's not controlling, that he's not going to hold this stuff over your head. And that's why what we're really checking for as women in those scenarios is not how much money you have or how much you can flex on things. It's actually just how generous you are. And the generous doesn't have to come from money necessarily, because a lot of men are just as selfish with their time. They're just as selfish with the things that they want to do for you, right? Because once again, the inciting incident of this breakup was that this man took her to this Washington Commanders football game, which is his favorite NFL team, paid for the tickets and everything, knowing that she's not into sports, and told her that it was her Christmas gift. That's not a generous man. Also, any man who's just so concerned about women gold digging and depending on them is not the man that you want to risk pregnancy with. That is not the man that you want to have children with, because he just doesn't understand. He has no empathy for you as a woman who's gonna have to go through the most difficult thing that I'm sure any of us could even imagine. You're essentially pregnant for a year. It's not just 9 months. A lot of people say 9 months. It's actually 10 months. And then you have your fourth trimester, which is basically the part where you have just given birth and now you're healing, because you're still not back to your normal self after that, right? So an entire year out of your life is going to be dedicated to carrying, gestating, birthing, breastfeeding, or just plain feeding, getting up in the middle of the night, your body recovering, all that for an entire year. And then for a man to say that I don't want a woman who's gonna have to depend on me, absolutely crazy thinking. What do you mean you don't want a woman to depend on you? You want to get her pregnant though. This is exactly why women are opting out of having kids with men, because men are delusional. They're delusional like that. They'll be like, I want you to have my kids, but I also don't want you to depend on me. Dead serious. They'll look you in the face and say that. I want you to have my children, but don't you dare think that you're going to be one of these gold diggers where I'm going to be paying all the bills. Hell no, bitch. That is extremely calculating. That is extremely cold and calculating. This is what I mean when I say none of these actions are accidental. None of these things are accidental, because men know very damn well what they're doing. And in fact, like I said, they are calculating all of these numbers and all of these costs in their head. So in her video, Caitlyn also talked about how whenever this man would walk his dog and he would invite her to go walk his dog with him, he would open the door for him and his dog and then kind of just let it shut on her. And it was basically slamming the door in her face when they're all outside. We're talking about calculated moves here, and the reason this one is calculated is because it's setting up future expectations. She talks about this herself in a follow-up video. Yeah, in those moments that he did that, I found myself thinking about, like, what if he is like walking hand in hand with one of our kids one day, and then he just lets the door like slam on me, and then my kids have to grow up seeing that, somebody kind of like just not being thoughtful towards their mother. And I think the reason this move is especially calculated is because she also mentioned that he would hold the door for her in other circumstances. So, like, when it was just the two of them, he would hold the door for her. Now, again, I'm glad that she connected the kids thing to the dog thing, because men resent responsibility. They resent responsibility. And whenever they take any responsibility off your shoulders as a woman, they still want you to pay for that. In that letting the door slam on her, there's already that hidden resentment. I have to walk the dog and hold the door for you? No, fuck you. And this is how some men act when the kids come along too. It's like, well, I'm doing something for the kid. Like, can't you just fucking move out of the way? Like, can't you just take care of yourself? And it's like, yeah, but at the same time, he wants to be called the provider and the leader of the family and like the father figure and all this stuff. But he's not actually providing or taking care of anybody. He's also happy to not provide and not protect in all of these little ways because he feels like it's too much responsibility on him. As women are expected to not only deal with kids all day and like do all this stuff, but also, you know, when their husband comes home, she's supposed to be nice to him. She's not supposed to be in a mood. She's not supposed to be grouchy. She's not supposed to be overstimulated. She's not supposed to be triggered. She's supposed to be up for sex at the end of the night. And men really expect women to look out for them so much. But what they don't want to do is feel like they're doing stuff thanklessly or for free. So he's like, I want her to get used to the fact that if I'm doing something, that means she's going to have to go without. He's setting you up for a future of, this is how we're going to do things. No, if I'm doing something else or if I'm occupied with something else, you cannot expect me to be considerate towards you. And in my opinion, that's a huge red flag. And if a man is acting like that, he's not ready to be like the head of a family, to be the leader of a family. I don't even believe in that shit anyways, but like, it's especially egregious because these will also be the men that are like, I'm the leader, I'm the provider, I want to provide for my kids, I can't wait to be a father. And it's like, yeah, you sound like one of those men that's gonna have children with a woman, and you're gonna love those children because they're part of you, but you're gonna resent her because she's still gonna expect you to step up for her. But you think that your obligation to her ended with getting her pregnant, and now your only obligation is like to the kids or something, which is absolutely crazy. Speaking even more of calculated actions, there was also an instance in which they were on a date and he said, let's play a game. If you win, then I have to take you to a really nice restaurant. And if I win, then you have to take me out to a really nice restaurant. I'm just gonna tell y'all right here, right now, that in itself is a red flag. This is called shit testing. This is a form of nagging, belittling, disrespect. It only gets more disrespectful from there, but the reason it's calculated is because it serves a purpose. Do not cool girl your way through these shit tests. Please, I'm begging you. Because whenever a man says something like this, he generally has a trick up his sleeve. He knows that he can sort of get you. And get her, he does. She explains in a follow-up video that the game was essentially like 4 questions that you couldn't give a right answer to. Like, you were supposed to say the wrong answer on purpose. And then the last question was, have you ever done this before? And she had been drinking and whatever. And she said, no, I've never done this before. And she was supposed to say, yeah, like, according to the rules of the game, she should have said, yes, I have done this before, right? Now, I'm all for, like, a guy who just laughs that off and is like, no, I was just kidding. Like, you don't have to take me out anywhere. Like, that was just a joke. Because otherwise, it is a calculated move. It's a humiliation ritual, basically. Because then the next day, this man books a Michelin star restaurant for them to attend. The reason it's a humiliation ritual is because she genuinely had no idea that this was going to be the nice restaurant that she was going to have to pay at. Because in anybody's mind, like in a normal person's mind, the expectation for the loser is to book the restaurant, is to choose what's a nice restaurant, right? And the reason for that is everybody's on a different budget. Again, he did not ask her how much she was making, base salary. So he was just assuming that a Michelin star restaurant was A, her version of nice, and B, was something that she could afford. And in fact, I'm betting that his play was that she was going to be like, I can't afford this. His play was probably going to be to call her a gold digger or to somehow use this against her. I don't think he was expecting her to be able to foot the bill. So she's like, I got like all dressed up to the nines for this date because I thought he wanted to take me to a really nice restaurant. Like he planned it, he booked it, and then told me to like, be ready at 7 or whatever. That's a date that the other person is paying for. By all standards and regulations, that is for sure a date that you're not gonna have to pay for. Being that she thought this was the case, she said, I bought a new outfit, I got my hair done, I did my makeup. She doesn't mention this, but I'm also betting that some nice skincare went into this, some exfoliating, some waxing, shaving, scrubbing, nice lotion, nice perfume. All of that went into her presentation because she's like, oh, he wants to take me out to this nice restaurant. So just so y'all know, for any dusty men that are possibly still listening to this point, that's her 50%. By the way, that's her 50%. If you expect to be able to take a woman to a nice restaurant, you also expect her to show up and pay for both of you, but you also expect her to show up dressed to the nines, buy a new outfit, get her hair done, get her makeup done, all that. And a lot of men will say, I don't expect that, but you would never. He would be so pissed if she came outside when he came to pick her up and she came outside an outfit that she was genuinely comfortable in. Bare face, hair's not done, maybe hair's in a bun, wearing sneakers. Like, the dusty men need to realize that showing up the way that y'all expect her fully to show up. Dressed to the nines, looking good, hair done, makeup done. That's the 50%. That's what she didn't do. A man to get dressed up, those are typically the steps. You get dressed. Maybe you put some product in your hair. Other than that, the expectations for you are done right there. So anyway, she does all this, she gets dressed up, and the whole way there, he's talking about how he's not going to order any drinks because he doesn't want to rack up the bill. So that's when she realizes, like, oh my God, he's not only following up on the stupid ass, like, game, bet, whatever, you have to take me to a nice restaurant thing. He also booked us a Michelin star restaurant without even asking me what kind of budget I have at a time and date that was convenient for him. It seemed like it was a date that he planned, and then he picks me up and starts talking about how, oh, don't worry, I'm not gonna run up a big bill. And he made her pay. He made her pay at the end of that date. Pay over $300. Tell me that's not calculated. All of those moves are extremely calculated. Like, this goes so far beyond like a fun little bet, like fun little game that y'all played at your, date and like you just laughed about it afterwards. No, these are all calculated moves in order to nag you, embarrass you, humiliate you, and put you down at the end of the day. Because if you were to flip this around and a woman did that, men would fly through the motherfucking roof. If a woman was like, let's play a game, and then if you lose, you have to take me out to a nice dinner, and then the man like loses on a trick question, and she's like, haha, okay, you lose, you're gonna have to take me out to a nice dinner. And then the next day, she's like, hey, I booked us a Michelin star restaurant, like, can't wait, like, I'll pick you up at 7, whatever. And then she takes you there and is like, yeah, $300, please. I just know the men's heads would explode. And all of this brings us to the inciting incident, being that this man took her to a Washington Commanders game. Tickets were probably not that cheap. The Commanders are one of the top teams this year. They're like very much in contention for playoffs, for the Super Bowl. And she's like, it was nice, but I don't really like sports. So I was kind of going like thinking that mostly I'm doing him a favor. Like, he really wants to do this. And so I went. On the way there, he tells her that that's actually her Christmas gift. And once again, tell me that's not calculated. Tell me that's not just setting somebody up for a lifetime of this, right? And she called this out, which I love. But she was like, I looked in my future and I saw an egg apron instead of the tickets to Greece. And if you don't know, that's a reference to Ballerina Farm. I have a very long video about it on my YouTube. You can look it up. That's what she was referencing. I'm so glad that she made that connection because that's exactly the plan. That's exactly what it is. Men very viscerally understand what they're doing. And I hate to tell y'all this. I really hate to be the bearer of such bad news, but they know damn well what they're doing. And I just really hate to see like gorgeous, successful women like racking their brains. How do I explain to him that like, even though I enjoyed myself and like, even though I don't like sports, it still was kind of fun, but I'm also like, is that really my Christmas gift? Again, like she said, she knew that he wasn't really joking because of the preceding incidents. Like, the whole Michelin star restaurant thing, which is another part of the calculation, right? So they try to throw these like negging, shit testing type things into the relationship as like little sprinkles in between what is generally like good treatment otherwise. That's exactly the goal. The goal is for you to like not only be aware of what he's doing, but to also just take it laying down. So like she was supposed to know that yes, this was really just a gift for him, and she was supposed to be okay with it because like the seats were nice, because the experience was nice, because he treats her like mostly nice otherwise. And she was supposed to just be okay with that. When in reality, every man knows that if his girlfriend was like, "Hey, come to this Taylor Swift concert with me. I got us like really nice seats. It's going to be super fun. You'll really enjoy the show. I know you don't like Taylor Swift or like pop music in general. I know you listen to like metal or rap or country or whatever, but I really think you should come to this Taylor Swift show with me." And then on the way there, she tells him it's his Christmas gift. Once again, tell me a man would not fly through the fucking roof. What? That's my Christmas gift? You're so selfish. You know I don't like Taylor Swift. You know that I would never do this for myself. Like, I can't believe you. You're so selfish. You're so mean. What a bitch. And then if you posted about it on TikTok, all the men would agree. Like, oh, break up with her, bro. She doesn't love you. They all would be like, she got those tickets for herself, bro. But, you know, they all act clueless when it's the other way around. And they'll be like, no, he just didn't know any better. No, men are just stupid. No, they're not. No, they're not. Because y'all cannot tell me that you would be happy about getting a Taylor Swift tickets for Christmas. Your girlfriend telling you that last minute. And that's the other calculation, right? There's so many calculations involved because he could have told her when he bought the tickets, or before he bought the tickets, he would have been like, hey, would this be a good Christmas gift for you? And she could have told him like, so glad you asked, because while that's really thoughtful, I would rather have blank blank blank, or like that wouldn't feel like a gift for me. I actually would feel like I'm more doing that for you. If he really wanted to know, he could have asked. He could have warned her ahead of time. He could have said anything, given her a chance to at least say no thank you. But he didn't. He took her all the way there and then told her on the way to the actual stadium, like when they're in the little, the little bus that takes you between the stadium and the parking lot. Then he tells. Come on. So yeah, you really can't convince me anymore at all at this point that men just don't know what they're doing, or that they're stupid, or that they wouldn't get it if you tried to explain this to them, because they absolutely would. They would just act stupid so that you think you're just wasting your time explaining this shit to him and he doesn't know any better. Because she was like, I could explain all this to him, but at what cost? Like, I'm worried about trying to explain to him the nuance of like, it's so nice that you did this, but also it's not that I don't want to be grateful, but it's just that like this is not a good Christmas gift for me. It doesn't feel thoughtful. It feels like you did all this for yourself. Like, you shouldn't have to explain that to another person. That should be the last thing on your mind, is how do I communicate my boyfriend's crazy making behavior back to him? This is what they intend to do. This is what they intend to do. They intend to burrow into your brain and into your psyche like a virus and disrupt your normal reactions to things. They want to infect your mind and make you believe that not only are they just so stupid and clueless, but that these very, very intentional actions are just simply mistakes. And it's just simply because they don't know any better. They just don't know how to love you. I'm just here to tell you, all of that is just compliance testing. They're compliance testing you, okay? They want to see how far they can push you. And I'm so, so happy that this woman, Caitlyn, was like, oh no, we're done. I just think she took such a nice route with it. She's very understanding, she's very kind, and I don't think at this point that men deserve that. Women have been out here educating men on how we want to be treated. Women have been out here saying all of this. Not to mention, once again, that these men would never expect to be treated the way that they treat you, which means that they have no empathy for you. And if you could see your man getting upset about you doing something that he did, and you find yourself still giving him the benefit of the doubt, like he doesn't know any better, you can stop. Even if he doesn't know any better, he should have the basic empathy for you to put himself in your shoes before doing some grand, stupid gesture. He should be able to think like, oh, you know what? She's not really that into sports. So if I give her this as a Christmas gift, that wouldn't be very thoughtful because I would hate for her to get me tickets to something that I'm not interested in. Like, hey, come with me, I'll pick you up, we'll do all this. And then, by the way, this is your Christmas gift. Something I enjoy and you don't. They're not stupid. Like, we have to stop giving them the benefit of the doubt. These actions are calculated. You just can no longer fucking convince me otherwise at all. And we actually just recorded our upcoming podcast episode for the Audacity exactly on all this kind of stuff. We have a list of like 40 plus red flags that we discuss and go over, so keep an eye out for that. That's coming out next Monday. And in the meantime, you can catch up on the 5 episodes that we have already dropped so far. Alrighty, stay safe out there, ladies. I love you so much. Godspeed.